Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So, everyone, welcome on this webinar. Before I actually introduce the topic, let me first introduce myself. I am from IIFT. My name is Rakesh Medirata, and I am the Associate Dean and the Associate Professor at IIFT Business School at Bangalore. Before I joined IIFT, I was the Associate Professor at IMT Ghaziabad, and my teaching experience is about 2 years. Before I came into the actual teaching, I actually worked in various corporates, and I've got a 29 years of working in corporates. So I believe I will be able to add some value to you by giving you both sides of the story, which is the corporate story as well as the education story in management. To give you some of the details, the companies that I worked in, I started my career at Hindustan Levers. I worked in the organizations like Godfrey Phillips, TTK Pharma, Raymond, and I was the vice president at Vodafone till about 2 years back. So therefore, I've got a mix of about 29 years of work experience in the industry, and that work experience is basically in the areas of sales and distribution, in marketing, in retail and operations. I've handled assignments which are of regional level and at national level. In the area of teaching, which is IIFT, I am the faculty in the marketing department, and I teach core and elective courses in marketing. So I hope my introduction is clear to you. And now let me just introduce you to the topic. So the topic today is the management education and careers of beyond tomorrow. Let me tell you, I think this is the most relevant topic that the business school aspirants should be talking about today. And why is this topic so relevant? If you see the industry today, basically there is a lot of changes and a lot of disruptions that is happening in the industry. And this is happening because of rapidly changing technology. We have elements like automation, and I'm sure you would have heard new roles coming up in automations and artificial intelligence, which is actually changing the way the industry works. And if we see that the industry is changing in terms of the way it works, it also is bringing a lot of opportunities in terms of the kind of roles that we have tomorrow, which is where we need to be prepared for the roles that are going to be emerging because of this changing nature in the industry. Let me give you an example. Traditionally, if you ask someone who was my age, what would you like to become? Some, let's say 25 years, 30 years back, you would have got an answer that I would like to be the product manager, or I would like to be the sales head. Now we need to ask this question to ourselves: are these roles going to be still relevant when we go, let's say, in future? So my answer to that is yes, to some extent, but there will be a whole lot of roles that will come up because of this changing nature in the industry, the way the industry works. Let me give you one example. I'm sure, I don't know whether people would have heard, but if I tell you that tomorrow after 5 years, there will be a role called the drone manager. Would you believe that there will be a role called drone manager in the organizations? Would you be then ready for a role like that if it comes to you, let's say 5 years from now? So all I'm saying is, ladies and gentlemen, this is the topic today, and let's get slightly deeper into this topic. Now I'm going to give you the first slide, which, I just share the slide with you. I hope the slides are now visible. It looks a little jarry on my screen, but I hope it is visible there. All right, so I really hope it is visible. All right, the slides that you have on your screen talks about the Fortune 500 companies. Let me first explain what are these Fortune 500 companies. So Fortune is a magazine which actually lists down the top 500 companies, basically American companies, in terms of the volume of business that they do per year, And this is the report that I took out, which is of January 2007. Now, in January 2007, which was approximately 10 years from now, you could find that if you take out this Fortune 500 list, there were 10 companies, which were basically 4 of them were oil companies. 3 of them were banks, one was software and stuff like that. So what happens? So which means that the way we did business 10 years Four of these oil companies had huge turnover. The banks had huge turnover, and therefore they were large companies on the Fortune 500 list. Let's see what has happened in the last 10 years. I picked the same magazine. I picked the same 500 Fortune 500 companies, and look at the way the mix of the companies have changed. Which are the companies that have now become prominent in the kind of revenues that they earn, the size of their business. So you find that latest January 2018 Fortune 500 companies have not got the oil companies on top, but they've got digital companies which are on top. They've got health companies or healthcare companies which are on top, and now we have only one bank and one oil company. With these two slides, I hope you understand.
Just tell me, it will take some time to fix the PPT. It is not visible.
Oh, is the PPT? I've been told that the PPT is not visible. So I'll be using the screen which is like not on the full screen. Can someone just ping me now and say, is it visible?
Right.
It's visible now? All right, I hope it is visible. So let me just repeat some of the points that I made earlier for some of you who could not see the slide. So like I was telling you, in the January 2000, when I look at the Fortune 500 companies, you could see 4 oil companies, 3 banks, and only 1 software company, which meant that the way that we did business, you had high turnover companies in the oil sector. I'm now looking at the same Fortune 500, and the scenario actually changes. The scenario comes back to January 2018, which is from 10 years from what I was telling you earlier. 10 years hence, you find that in the same list, you have 6 digital companies now. You have 1 healthcare company and 1 bank. So I hope you understand the speed with which the industry is changing, the speed with which the way you do business, the speed with which what the customer is expecting from us, the speed with which the processes are changing to address the new customer needs are changing. And I can guarantee you that what has changed in the last 10 years, if you see the next 5 years, the change is going to be only rapid. So having said that, and let's analyze what are these Fortune 500 companies which are featuring on top in January 2018. Let me go to my next slide, and I'll tell you that what are the things which are common in these, So now we talk about elements like digital. We talk about elements like innovation. We talk about solutioning, and I'm going to speak a lot about solutioning in my next slides, because I think this forms a very important part of what the industry is going to be shaped in future. We talk about entrepreneurship. So these are some of the common elements which you will find that going forward, these will be the companies, if they have these elements, would be successful. And like I said earlier, the time period is going to be only shortened. Some of the elements which are common in all those 5 points that I have listed on the slide is basically taking the risk, basically being able to analyze the situation much ahead of what you are actually used to. So these are the kind of companies that today's management aspirants should actually aspire for. Because I believe that unless you have this at the back of your mind, I do not think you'll be fully ready for the kind of future roles that are going to come your way. And I'm sure all of you are here to ensure that you don't miss the bus, and you are equipped and you are upskilled and you are really skilled, adequately skilled to take the opportunities and challenges of the industry, the new ways of working of the industries. Okay, now I'll just go to the next slide and tell you that why this thing has happened. Now the slide heading would read VUCA because of disruption. Now I'm sure this is a jargon which you will find a lot of management schools and a lot of management graduates and a lot of management practicing managers use. Is they say that it's a VUCA world out. Now before I go ahead, let me just explain to you what actually you mean by VUCA. So if I was to give you an explanation of VUCA, actually every element in V, U, C stands for something. So V is basically volatility, U is basically uncertainty, C is complexity, and A is ambiguity. Now, These are some of the challenges that you would actually face. You will be living in the world of VUCA. Let me give an example. Suppose it's an ambiguity part. Now, what all things get covered in ambiguity in a real manager's life? Suppose a manager has to make a decision whether you would launch a product which is in your areas of expertise, or should you go ahead and launch a product which is completely new area. You have an ambiguous situation. So if you need to actually come across that ambiguous situation and you have to deal with that ambiguous situation, then the skill sets that you would use in your management would not be the traditional skill sets that have been imparted earlier. You would have to be upskilled to actually get on and take on the world of challenges, which is basically the VUCA world. I hope I've been able to explain to you what actually VUCA means, so that it can, we can go further and analyze further what is the situation which is emerging now. So if you see, and I'm going to just play the entire slide to you, the companies which are going to be successful because of the disruptions that are happening in the marketing and in the business environment that I explained earlier. On top of it, if you have the VUCA kind of challenge, the companies that are going to be successful in futures are not those companies which are currently big now, or not the bigger companies, but basically those companies where the managers are equipped and where they move fast in terms of actually implementing the policies and understanding the environment. So if I have to sum this up, the companies that are going to be successful are the new age technology companies, where you will find the companies are able to handle the disruptions, create the disruptions. They are not necessarily bigger, but they are definitely faster. Right, so having made that point, while I say IFM beyond tomorrow currently in this slide, but I would request you to hold on for some time, and I'm going to introduce to you IFM a little later, because I think at IFM we are playing a very big role in terms of upskilling and actually making our aspirants and students ready for these kind of challenges that they're going to face after 5 or 7, 10 years from now. Okay, so this is something that I spoke to you in terms of what is the VUCA world from the industry angle. And let me just tell you one independent exercise which was conducted by a body called the World Economic Forum. And this is an independent body which is basically headquartered at Switzerland, and they bring the political and the business platform together so that there is an increase of business at the corporate level, at the national level, at the regional level, at the world level, and they are doing a lot of work on that. And if you actually go onto the website and actually find out about what is this World Economic Forum, the exercise, you'll find that they did an exercise in which they wanted to identify what are those skills that would be necessary for actually being successful in the future of jobs. So I would urge you to please go onto this site and actually find out more details. I have tried to capture 10 what you call details for the 10 future job skills that this site is talking about. So some of them are easy to understand. Like say you talk about complex problem solving. So obviously we've related this with the kind of roles and the kind of environment you have. The nature of problems that will come up to you would be complex. We talk about something which is critical thinking. So critical thinking is a course that some of the institutes teach, and we are very strong in this kind of curriculum. Critical thinking is nothing but basically that tells you about logical reasoning and actually practicing that logical thinking in terms of solving problems. Let me come to point number 4 and 5. I think it looks very simple, which is people management, coordinating with others. If you just read these words in isolation, they will look very simple. But I think the success of a manager in the organization today is how efficiently he or she can handle his or her people. The coordination with others, which means when you say coordination with others, which means being able to work with various departments, not by hierarchy, but by influencing, I think is an important skill which is really required to be successful in future jobs. There are other elements like emotional intelligence, there is negotiations, and particularly if you see point number 8, This is service orientation. Now let me tell you, service orientation is extremely important from the Indian point of view, because our service contribution to our GDP is really high, and service orientation is not service orientation in isolation. When we talk about service orientation, the customer experience or customer service is basically knitted across all the elements or all the roles that you do. So you are supposed to be customer or customer focused, even if you are working in manufacturing or if you are working in finance, working in HR. It's not only the departments in marketing or departments in sales which are now trained in service orientation, but basically the entire organization works towards the customer experience and the service orientation. All right, so this is something which is basically the 10 skills, and there's the last one which is indicated as cognitive flexibility. Let me tell you that it is nothing but basically developing strategies where you will find the new conditions that have emerged in the market, and how will you devise your strategies to get onto these new conditions. Let me just sum this up and say that all of these 10 are going to be again coming back to something that I discussed earlier in my earlier slides, which is the VUCA situation. So I hope I have now actually, let me just sum this up, whatever I've told you now. We're talking about the way the industries are changing. We're also talking about the way the businesses are emerging in the market, which means that not only the bigger but the faster companies. We are talking about the new age companies that are coming up. And now what we've done is, in this slide, we've seen that if you have to be ready for a role in this new age companies, you need to have these 10 important skills. I hope I have been able to make these 2 points very clear, because my presentation now is actually dealing with these 2 points. All right, so now let me just go further, and like I promised you earlier, I'm now going to introduce to you something which is IIFM. While the operating slides of IIFM in terms of curriculum, in terms of what we do, will follow later, but I think I want to first emphasize about the kind of work that IIFM Bangalore is doing in these areas that I've just spoken about. So I've spoken to you about the World Economic Forum's report. IIFM has also partnered with another organization, which is the NHRDN, which is based out of India, and we have worked together to see how these changing industries and the skill sets that are required, how we are going to be able to translate that into our learning objectives through our curriculum, so that our students are prepared for it. So before I get into that, you would also see a green kind of symbol which says AACSB. It is basically an accreditation that we've got from an American body. It's a coveted accreditation, and basically only 9 schools in this country have got this, which means that we are now confident, not only in terms of our processes, but whatever we are creating on this platform is actually going to be competitive. It's going to be really, one of the finest curriculum and the finest processes in terms of our ability to impart the learning objectives to our students. So now, once we've understood these terms which are on the slide, let me tell you what we did. So we partnered with NHRDA and we were supported by AACSB. We actually went on to speak to the industry people in real time, and basically we selected approximately 300 top industry people, and we showed them this report that was by WEF, and also we did some kind of a research in terms of what is relevant in Indian context, what do they think about the roles that are going to emerge and the skill sets that would be required, and what are the real needs of the industry in India today. And this is this operating slide which just explains to you, we really worked hard in terms of our effort, where we actually called these CXOs, which are basically top level executives in various cities in India, and we interacted them in person, and we wanted to find out what do you think, and we had to take this opinion from them. So now if I sum this up, I'll tell you that now we have the economic report, the World Economic Forum report with us. We know how the industry is changing. We've also gone to the industry in India to tell us whether what we are doing or what our thought process is it relevant in the Indian context. And therefore, let me just give you a little bit more detail on this exercise. we clearly asked them some research questions which was very important. So this direct question that came to them was, what are the specific unmet needs of the industry that the business schools must address today? And I believe this is a very strong question and a very relevant questions that we've asked, because here is the exercise that we are trying to do through our learning objectives, through our curriculum, to make sure that our students are really equipped to take on these new challenges. And the second thing was, we wanted to ratify what is the relevance of the new set of skills identified by WEF. So if these two questions are answered to our satisfaction and to the satisfaction of all the stakeholders, including the industry, I think we've done a very successful job in terms of preparing our students for the jobs or the roles of tomorrow. If some of you are interested, and I think you must be if you've shown this interest, in terms of what is the mechanism that we followed. It is only to re-emphasize the kind of rigor that we followed. So like I said, approximately 300 executives, and we participated. Out of them, 18 were basically top-end executives in terms of holding the senior most leaderships in the company, and we spoke to them. We traveled to Mumbai, New Delhi, and we had sessions here in Bangalore to actually basically engage with the industry and get the roadmap in terms of what the curriculum should be, which is relevant to the Indian conditions for the changing roles and the new scenarios. All right. Now, this slide that you see here is the outcome of that study that we created in terms of our exercise. Now, just look at the kind of needs that the industries are telling you today. You know, the industry is telling you that solution-oriented and problem-solving. While I'm going to take that in detail as far as the curriculum is concerned, but solution-oriented means what? It means not only the strategy, it means that they would want managers to not only create strategy, but on ground able to execute those strategy. Only then you will find success in terms of, in terms of business results. You see, they're talking about social sensitivity and cross-cultural orientation. I think it looks very simple on the sentence, but I think it is extremely important, and specifically more important in the Indian context. You need to be socially sensitive in terms of the environment that we in India are operating. Some of you would have experienced or read the kind of business practices that happens across the other geographies. You find that the way we do business in India is very different, because one has to be able to understand what are the social problems that are basically there with the Indian consumers, which might not be similar in the other geographies. So these were the 10 basically unmet needs. I can go and read each one of them, but I think I've picked up some very important points. And lastly, to conclude this, if you see the point number 5, which really connects and actually ratifies our position, which actually says, yes, what we are doing is right. If you see point number 5, it says people and team orientation. And now if you link this back, you will find that there is a strong linkage of what we are talking about in terms of how industry is changing, in terms of how roles are going to change, in terms of what WEF is telling us, and how this is relevant in the Indian conditions. All right. There were some other very interesting facts that came out from the study that we did, and I think one of them, it says multi-generation workforce. I mean, imagine today if you have a company where you have a marketing manager who's, let's say, a 50-year-old, you have a CEO who's 40 years old, and you have young people in the marketing department or in the digital departments who just come out fresh. You have some in their 20s or 25s or 30s, they're fresh out of business schools, and they are those technology savvy people. So you find that in an organization, you'll find various generations that are working. Now, the moment you talk about various generations working in workforce, the way they think, the way they implement, the way they actually conceive and find solutions to problems is different. And therefore, in the industry, we talk about diversity. We talk about diversity not only in terms of gender, we now talk about diversity in terms of generations at workforce. So this is something that has come up very recently and very strongly. So therefore, once you go into an organization, you will find similar situations where you will find at least 3 generations working in an organization. The other thing that came out was the curriculum needs to be individualized. And there I think IIFM plays a very important role in terms of giving you a bespoke kind of opportunities in terms of selecting your courses. So this is something which came out from our NHRD and study in terms of if you see point number 2, I think this is again a very important point, and I think we must spend some time on that. It says continuous learning. I remember when I was studying, I mean, we did our graduation and then we went ahead and MBA and that was it, and we thought that we're done with our education. But today, the way the business environment is changing, one has to keep oneself updated and latest at all times. So the period that you are entering would be the period of continuous learning, where you will have to go back and make sure that you are reskilled somehow, whether in business schools or personal development, but you need to be reskilled to take the challenges of tomorrow. And like I said earlier, that the time that it took for the companies changing from 2007 to 2018 in Fortune 500, it's going to be the lesser time. So in the next 5 years, you might see that the industry is completely changed. And if you've not reskilled yourself, I think you'll be left behind. Point number 6, again, one of my favorite points, it tells about wellness and fitness. Well, someone might challenge me and say that, what does wellness and fitness got to do it? But believe you me, that when you talk about being an effective leader, I think it's a sense of feeling better inside. If you feel better inside, if you feel that you're healthy, I think it really adds a lot onto your productivity and the way you look at situations. The last point is on solution, and I'm repeating myself, I did that earlier. Solution is not only strategizing. Solution is to actually lead from the front and make sure that the strategy is implemented and execution becomes an important part. So therefore, the study which we did with the help of NHRDN revealed some fantastic insights for us to move ahead. Okay, now let's come back and see how does this world of business school or universities in India look like. I'm going to put to you something which is called QS Top 100, and I would urge you to go onto the net and look at QS Top 100. It tells you certain stark facts about the universities in this country. The first one is, which I have highlighted on bold, it says not a single Indian university figures in the top 100 list. Now, is this bad? Good. I'm not challenging that. What I'm saying is that there is a reason for the Indian universities to not be at top 100. I'm not talking about the capability. I'm just telling you that the reasons have been that we are very, very internally focused. So we have internal demands which you're trying to meet, and therefore the organizations also, because of the kind of demands that we've been having, is more focused towards the Indian business. It's only now, it's only the situation which is currently changing, you'll find that this has to change. This really has to change, because we need at this point in time a global Indian business school that would not only for the sake of being on top 100, but actually are able to look at cross-cultural, across geographies, and making sure that they are equipping their students, and I repeat, equipping their students for new age companies and for new age roles. All right, so if I have set the context right, I think I would now take you through what is IIFM all about. So this is only the 6th Indian school, and we pride in ourselves when we say the only 6th Indian school which is the AACSB accredited, and we actually gave ourselves less than 5 years to achieve this, and in 53 months we actually achieved this. So it's a recent phenomena, and I think this is a matter of pride for all of us here at IIFM. I'm sure some of you would have gone through our websites. So what I'm going to give you now is some of the operating slides which will give you some of the details of the PGDM program at IIFM. So if you see what are the kind of students or kind of aspirants that we are looking at. We are looking at grooming young graduates for futuristic careers in new age industries and new age roles. And I'm sure we've had a lot of discussions on new age industries and new age roles. And the format that I explained to you earlier is a bespoke model where you have a choice of actually selecting your learning pathway and find out what is the courses that you would like to do from a bouquet of courses that will actually enhance or actually, satisfy your personal career aspirations. So you have a bespoke model, you're not very rigid, and we allow our students to actually, look back and find out their own learning path and follow the learning path that they are most, happy with. If I take you through various stages that we take our students through, so you have foundation courses. I'm just leaving this slide as it is because it basically tells you about what we cover in term 1, term 2, term 4, term 5, and term 6. It basically takes you from foundation to the IIPs. And I think there is one very important term, which is term 5. So before I come to term 5, okay, let me take you to term 2, 3, and 4. So after the foundation course, we need to actually build on some core courses. These core courses are the long-term courses which will equip you to speak the management language. It gives you it will instill confidence in you in terms of understanding what's happening in the industry. And the level 4, which is the term 4, will then actually now lead you to this new age roles which I have just spoken about. Term 5 is a very interesting term 5, and I would call it a super specialization term, and I think I must speak a little bit on that. So super specialization is a term which is going to be dedicated one term, which will actually give you, which will empower you, and which will upskill you to actually take on the roles of future. Which means that, people who are interested in technologies like fintech or artificial intelligence or machine learning, which are going to be the roles of future, this is the term that will actually prepare you for that. Term 5, how it operates is that we would actually encourage our students to go to various other geographies, and some of you who would opt for going overseas in the US institutes, the US universities, where you have state-of-the-art courses running there. At IIFM, you will get exposure to those institutes where you will actually work with the professors and the faculty who are world-class in these areas. Now, who is going to go to those institutes? We have one more innovation that I need to tell you in our term 5, which is super specialization. The cohort or the class size that will come will not be only the institute students. So this is the innovation that I would request you to understand carefully. So not only the students of business school at IIFM would go to partner universities overseas, but you will also have a mixed cohort where we will actually encourage experienced people from the industry who are pursuing their executive education to go along with you. So this will not only create a situation overseas where you get super specialized in terms of the curriculum or in terms of the area you've chosen, but you actually get to work with multi-generation that I was talking about. So here is a person who has actually spent 10 years, 12 years working experience, and here is a person who's just out of his college. Both of you in the same class, in the same team, working together on a real-time industry problem at an international location, which is equipped to give you the best-in-class of education there. So I think this is something which is unique to IIFM. The other important elements which actually makes up the curriculum at IIFM is PEP, which is Personality Enhancement Program. And I've spoken to you about being well-being in terms of not only health, but it also talks about how you're going to enhance your personality in terms of the way you communicate, in the way you interact with people. And I think this is a very powerful program which we've added to our super specialization. So you will find not many institutes and not many business schools are actually thinking in terms of PEP and in terms of super specialization. I also touched upon design thinking, which is one of the important skills which has emerged both in World Economic Forum as well as our industry. We're talking about that we need people who are basically, equipped to handle and able to, who undertaken this course called design thinking and research, so that they're able to, meet the challenges of this new way of doing business in the industry. The last point is the SIP, which is Social Immersion Project. Again, comes back from the same thing which emerges, which says that in India, if you need to do business, you make sure how our customer behaves, the kind of culture and the kind of environment that we have in India. And I think this is something that really prepares you for that. So if I have to sum up this slide, it gives me the confidence that the students or the the kind of product that goes out of IFM will be equipped 100% for the future roles and would be ready to take on the opportunities that comes across their way in the new way of doing business. All right, so we move forward now. And now I think I have, while I've already spoken, this is something that is close to my heart, which is super specialization, and we are introducing the super specialization not only in 2 years, like I said, this will be an integral part of our executive education also. It talks about the new age areas, which means machine learning, artificial intelligence, fintech at a partner university abroad. It talks about multi-generation workforce. It talks about mixing the MBA students with executives, and the purpose is going to be reskilling of these executives, and at last but not the least, a global exposure. If some of you are interested on how the super specialization works, we'll have a format which will go like this. At IFIM, you will find that there is going to be a master class which will consist of the cohort that I just spoke about, and there would be faculties which are going to come from, let's say, US or Europe, you are really expert in these areas, and will give you a master class here at IFIM. After that, there is a blended learning in terms of tutorials, online tutorials. We'll do a coursework include, and then you go, and the entire cohort then goes to the partner institute in the US or Europe, and there they actually work 3 weeks on the live projects and the live solutions, and in the mixed cohort that I spoke about, and in the end they get a professional certificate from the partner university. So this is how the super specialization will work. And now you can ask me the kind of questions in terms of what are the kind of partner universities that we're talking about. So like I said, that we're going to be the state of art in terms of our curriculum, in terms of the way the customer or the student journey happens. So here it is for you. We're talking about, potential partners like Darden School of Business, like, University of Carnegie Mellon. We're talking about Virginia Commonwealth University. We are talking about University of Texas in Austin. And I'm sure some of you would have researched a bit on the business schools, and the moment you do Google, or the moment you try and search on the net, you'll find that these are the most prestigious schools in the US, and a certificate from these schools actually put a confirmation stamp that the students today are ready for the future roles and for the future jobs in the new age industry. All right, this slide, I would like to present because some of you would be really waiting to ask us what's the placement performance at IFIM, while the details could be taken out from the net. But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we are proud to tell you that this year, before December 2018, we had 100% students placed or had their IIPs before the end of the year 2018. And there were some really good companies which were listed in Fortune 500, participated, and some of the students not only had one offer, but had multiple offers. I'm only confident that going forward, this program is going to be further enhanced because the kind of skills that we are going to prepare our students with. Okay, so this is the academic calendar. Basically tells you if you come to IFIM, how does it work? So we have foundation, which is of 6-week duration, while again this time I think this is available on the net, but it takes you through the journey in terms of your learning journey. You have foundation courses, term 1, term 2 takes you core course. In term 3, you have electives and prerequisites. These are those prerequisites which are required for you to be prepared to conduct your super specializations in the industries abroad. And you have term 6, which is the major electives, and terms after that, term 6, you're all ready for placements in IIPs. So this is something for those people who are really interested in the kind of journey that the students will go through. Okay, so I am almost at the end of my presentation to you, but just to declare that the students who are going to come up now in our institute would experience the revamped curriculum. We have already prepared the curriculum for our new cohort, which would be in line with the Industry 4.0, and this was released on January 8th, where some of the eminent personalities in the education sector like Jagdish Seth, like Parshuraman, and if you Google them, you'll find that these are some of the maestros that people talk about in the management world today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so this is my last slide, and thank you so much for being with us. And we at IIFM would like to welcome you and would like to partner with you in your journeys, in your opportunities that you're seeking from the industry. And we would like to prepare you for all the careers and challenges beyond tomorrow. Thank you so much. And I would really love if we could have some questions so that I could discuss some of the elements more in detail. So I'll just await your questions. You'll have to give me some time. Let me go through the questions and I'll try and answer as best as possible. All right, so here is one question which Ajay has asked, and I think, thank you Ajay for asking this question, and I think this has invoked some interest, which is on super specialization. And super specialization, like I said, is very close to my heart and the kind of uniqueness that we offer in our course. So super specialization is something that is going to prepare you for the jobs of tomorrow. In the partner universities, the advantage there is that you actually go to the partner university and take the skills from world-class faculty and world-class facilities along with the cohort here, which is a mix. So you get the exposure not only at the partner universities abroad, but you actually get to work with experienced industry people, and you will actually see the real life situation of industry there. So I would invite you to come and experience this at our institute. I hope I've answered your question to the best of my ability. All right, so so the question that is asked is, may I know what is the percentage of students that are coming to IIFM having background in engineering? Well, I don't have the offhand percentage, but I can tell you that there is a sizable amount, a sizable percentage of or portion of our students are from engineering background, and that's, I think, more so in most of the colleges. So if you had to take a benchmark, I think it would be more than 50% that we get engineers. But our endeavor would be to actually have a diversity in class. We would encourage people who are in arts, who are humanities, and other what you call streams to also apply, so that it's always better to have a mixed cohort. All right, so somebody's asked me, Eswar has asked me, how do you rate IIFM with respect to IIMs? Well, I would not like to answer that question directly because it is unfair on me to rate IIFM with IIMs or any other institute. But what I'm going to definitely tell you is that there are certain things which are the advantages that we have at IIFM. One is the AACSB accreditation, and we talk about those elements which are actually preparing for you for the future roles. I'm talking about elements like super specialization. I'm talking about our part of curriculums like PEP or health or new age areas. So I'm not going to directly compare myself with IIFM. I believe both the institutes have got their strength, and I believe both the institutes are actually preparing the students in their own way. But I can speak for IIFM that we are going to prepare our students for the future roles, and that is something that I'm really confident about. Okay, so I have one more question from Ramya, and she says, what is the selection criteria at IIFM? All right, so once you come to IIFM, in terms of how you're going to interact with us, they're going to be the 3 steps that we talk about. One is, the first one would be to actually talk about checking the innovation potential in terms of how innovative are you. So that would be a kind of 30 minutes exercise that one has to be prepared for to test the innovation. And there are other 2 stages. The second stage would be that the students are put to a situation. So we do not go by the conventional group discussion, but we bring the students together, aspirants together, and there is a situation that is given to them, and at the end of it, by the teamwork, they have to come out and actually present the situation, the solution to the situation that was presented. And the final round is the interview round, where we will have 2 faculty from IIFM, and we also invite our alumni to be a part of our interview process, so that all the stakeholders are really confident the kind of intake that we are having. So that's the 3-step process in terms of our selection criteria. Okay, so the details of scholarship I believe are there, but often if I remember somebody's asked me, are there any scholarships? So we have 10 scholarships, but the details are already there. I think on the website you'll get more, but there are definitely scholarships, and I remember 10 is the number that we're talking about in terms of scholarships. All right, so if you don't have any questions, you could write to us. We would be happy to take any questions that you have, but I think I must thank you once again for being a part of this webinar, and we look forward to welcoming you at IIFT. Thank you. Thank you so much.